What if the most dangerous thing in hip-hop isn't a diss track, but patience? 50 Cent has always understood something most people miss. Power doesn't have to scream. Sometimes it waits, watches, and smiles while everyone else talks themselves into trouble. That's why what he's doing to Diddy right now feels so unsettling to people watching closely. It's quiet, it's calculated, and it's very on brand. To understand why this moment feels different, you have to stop thinking of 50 Cent as just a rapper. That version of him existed, sure, but it was only the doorway. Curtis Jackson turned himself into a system. Music was the entry point, not the destination. Once he realized attention could be leveraged, he never stopped pulling on that thread. Back in the early 2000s, 50 came into the industry like a wrecking ball wrapped in charisma. He wasn't polished, he wasn't friendly, he wasn't interested in playing the nice guy for radio interviews. He was raw, funny, and fearless in a way that made people lean in. When Get Rich or Die Tryin' landed, it didn't just sell records, it shifted gravity. People forget how threatening that kind of success can feel to others in power. When someone rises that fast without asking permission, it makes executives nervous and artists defensive. And 50 noticed all of it. He watched who smiled, who stayed quiet, and who tried to control the narrative around him. That's where the pattern begins. 50 Cent has never rushed a feud. He lets it breathe. He allows his opponents to explain themselves over and over again, digging deeper holes with every statement. He jokes. He posts memes. He acts like it's all entertainment, but there's always something else happening underneath. Over the years, we've seen artists, managers, and entire brands get pulled into his orbit and come out changed. Sometimes careers stalled, sometimes reputations cracked, sometimes the silence afterwards said more than any headline ever could. The scary part isn't that 50 attacks people, it's that he doesn't need to. When he had issues with Ja Rule, it wasn't just lyrical warfare, it became cultural. Ja didn't just lose a rap battle. He lost momentum, relevance, and eventually his footing in the industry. The music stopped hitting the same. The public stopped listening the same way. That didn't happen overnight. It happened slowly, painfully, and very publicly. The same thing happened to others. You can trace a line through hip-hop history and see moments where 50 applied pressure, stepped back, and let gravity do the rest. He understands timing better than almost anyone in entertainment. Which brings us to Diddy. For decades, Diddy has been one of the most powerful figures in music. Mogul, visionary, gatekeeper. His influence shaped careers, sounds, and entire eras. He built an image of celebration, luxury, and control. And for a long time, that image held. But images are fragile things. When public allegations and lawsuits began circulating around Diddy, the industry reacted carefully. Statements were measured, brands paused, media outlets used cautious language. Everyone seemed to be waiting to see which way the wind would blow. Everyone except 50 Cent. Instead of rushing to condemn or defend, 50 did something colder. He started paying attention publicly, posting, commenting, asking questions without really asking them. He let the internet do what it does best, connecting dots, speculating, replaying old clips with new eyes. And then came the announcement of his involvement in a documentary project centered around the allegations and the broader culture of power in the music industry. That's where things shift from messy to unsettling. Because documentaries aren't diss tracks. They live longer. They get replayed. They get cited. They become part of the historical record. And 50 knows that better than anyone. He's already proven it with his work in television and film. He understands storytelling. He understands framing. This isn't about screaming accusations. It's about curating a narrative. What makes this terrifying for Diddy isn't just the content. It's the messenger. 50 Cent doesn't come across as emotional or reactive. He comes across as amused, detached, almost bored. That posture makes everything feel more believable to an audience already skeptical of power. And audiences today are very different. People don't just consume music anymore. They consume context. They want backstories. They want receipts. They want to feel like they're seeing behind the curtain. Social media trained everyone to be investigators, and 50 feeds that instinct without ever fully satisfying it. He lets curiosity do the damage. There's also something deeply unsettling about watching someone with nothing left to prove take aim at someone whose legacy is still very much on trial. 50 doesn't need another hit record. He doesn't need approval. He doesn't need access. That freedom makes him unpredictable. And unpredictability is dangerous in an industry built on control. For years, people whispered about power imbalances in music, about who gets protected, about who gets silenced. But whispers rarely change systems. Stories do, especially when they're told by someone who already survived being the villain. 50 Cent has always leaned into being disliked. He weaponized it. While others tried to clean up their image, He leaned into controversy and learned how to monetize attention. That's why attempts to shame him never really worked. He already stood where critics wanted to push him. So when he positions himself as a producer, shining light on uncomfortable truths, it hits differently. It feels less like a smear and more like a reckoning, even if everything presented is framed as alleged, reported, or explored through interviews. And that framing matters. That patience is what makes this feel terrifying rather than explosive. There's no rush to closure. No dramatic finale yet. Just a slow tightening of focus, a steady drip of commentary, a growing sense that something permanent is being built. Careers don't always collapse in flames. Sometimes they erode. You can see it in how brands respond, how collaborators distance themselves, how old footage gets reinterpreted, how silence starts to feel louder than denial. None of that requires a verdict. It just requires attention sustained long enough. And attention is 50 Cent's favorite currency. He understands that in the modern era, control isn't about owning everything. It's about influencing perception. If you shape the conversation, you shape the outcome. That's something Diddy mastered for years. Now he's facing someone who learned the same skill from the opposite angle. And 50 Cent knows exactly how long to let that process run. He doesn't need to destroy anyone outright. He just needs to remind. That's why this feels less like beef and more like exposure, less like revenge and more like a lesson. A reminder that in hip-hop, survival isn't always about strength. Sometimes it's about memory. And 50 Cent never forgets. There's a moment many people remember, though it didn't feel important at the time. 50 Cent posting something that looked like a joke, a throwaway laugh, something you scrolled past while waiting for your coffee. That's usually how it starts. Later, when the story grows teeth, people go back and realize those jokes were markers, breadcrumbs. That's part of his style. He doesn't announce chapters. He lets them reveal themselves later. Look at how he moved when television entered his world. Power wasn't just a hit show, it was a statement. He took the raw energy people associated with his music and translated it into long-form storytelling. Crime, ambition, loyalty, betrayal. Familiar themes, but told with patience. The same patience he applies in real life. Television taught him something valuable. Audiences don't need everything at once. They like tension. They like waiting. They like connecting dots themselves. That's the same rhythm he's using now. When people say this situation is terrifying, they don't mean scary like a jump scare. They mean the slow dread of knowing something is changing and being unable to stop it. Diddy built his empire in an era where gatekeepers controlled access. 50 thrives in an era where access controls gatekeepers. That's a massive difference. Social media flattened the hierarchy. A meme can travel faster than a press release. A question can do more damage than a denial. And 50 is fluent in that language. He speaks it casually, like someone texting friends, which makes it even more effective. There's also a generational edge here. Younger audiences don't carry the same emotional loyalty to legacy figures. They didn't grow up watching Diddy dance in shiny suits or shouting out "bad boy" as a movement. They see clips out of context. They see headlines. They see reactions. And 50 knows exactly how to frame things for them. He doesn't ask you to cancel anyone. He just presents moments and lets discomfort grow naturally. That's far more powerful. People don't like being told what to think. They like realizing it on their own. Behind the scenes, industry veterans are watching closely. Not because they're picking sides, but because they recognize a shift. The rules that protected power for decades don't work the same way anymore. Silence isn't safety. Image management isn't enough. These aren't questions a diss track can raise. A documentary can. That's why this feels bigger than entertainment. It feels like culture catching up to itself. And 50 just happens to be holding the camera. None of this means outcomes are predetermined. Allegations are still allegations. Investigations take time. Truth has layers. But perception moves faster than facts, and perception shapes reality and entertainment. 50 Cent understands that deeply. He's lived long enough in this industry to know when to speak and when to let others speak for him. Right now, he's letting the world talk. Every tweet, every reaction video, every heated debate adds another layer. And he smiles. Not because it's funny, but because it's familiar. He's seen this movie before, just with different actors. The unsettling truth is that this could have been anyone. Diddy just happens to be the one standing at the center of the storm. He'll let time do its work. He'll let attention reshape narratives. He'll let silence echo. That's the terrifying part. Because when the dust finally settles, what's left isn't anger. It's memory. It's also worth noticing how calm he stays while everyone else speculates. Calm reads as confidence. Confidence reads as credibility. That's not accidental. 50 has always known that emotions leak information. By staying relaxed, he lets others reveal more than they intend. There's a discipline to that. A restraint most people don't have when attention is on them. Especially when the subject is as explosive as this one. He doesn't overpost. He doesn't overshare. He taps the glass just enough to remind everyone he's there. That restraint keeps the focus where he wants it. People often ask why artists turn on each other instead of the system. The uncomfortable answer is that the system is harder to fight. It's abstract. It hides behind contracts and smiles. But moments like this crack the surface. They show how narratives are protected and how quickly that protection can vanish. 50 isn't pretending to be the system's savior. He's just exposing how it works. That's what makes this moment feel like a warning shot. Not just to Diddy, but to anyone still relying on old rules. The audience has changed. The internet remembers. And patience can be more dangerous than rage. That lesson lingers long after the noise fades. A slow, quiet, deeply uncomfortable awareness that settles in once the noise fades. Watching this unfold reminds everyone of something we tend to forget when emotions run high and timelines move fast. Influence is always temporary, but records are permanent. Screenshots don't fade with time. Archives don't forget with age. Apologies come and go, often carefully timed and carefully worded. But documentation carries a longer memory than any PR cycle ever could. They survive revisions, clarifications, and attempts to rewrite them after the fact. 50 Cent learned that lesson early, long before longevity was expected of him. He came up in an industry that never assumed he would last, let alone evolve, adapt, or remain relevant across eras. The assumption was simple and familiar. He'd burn hot, flame out fast, and disappear like so many others before him. That expectation shaped how people watched him, but instead of chasing approval, he studied leverage. Instead of demanding respect, he paid attention to attention itself, and he collected it patiently, deliberately, without rushing the process. Over time, he learned how to hold both, how to deploy them without waste, how to move with intention rather than impulse, precision instead of reaction. You don't have to like him to recognize the skill involved. You don't have to admire him. You don't even have to agree with his methods or his choices. You just have to watch closely and watch honestly. That's why people can't look away. It doesn't feel like chaos. It doesn't feel like spectacle. It feels like watching something take shape in real time. History being written one quiet move at a time, each decision layered carefully on top of the last. Not because it's loud or dramatic, but because it works. Because it doesn't rely on noise to be effective. It's a reminder that the loudest moments are rarely the most important ones. The moments that shape everything almost never announce themselves when they happen. More often, it's the quiet choices, the deliberate pauses, the patience to wait while others rush, the restraint to observe instead of react. Those are the moments that determine what comes next. In a culture built entirely on noise, that kind of silence can feel deafening. It creates space where people aren't comfortable. It creates tension that doesn't resolve itself quickly. It forces people to fill in the gaps on their own, to speculate, to project, to sit with uncertainty. And that silence is where the story lives now, stretching longer with every day that passes, gaining weight simply by remaining unresolved, becoming heavier precisely because nothing has interrupted it. Once a story reaches that point, it rarely goes back to sleep. It doesn't disappear. It doesn't reset. It doesn't simply move on because the timeline has. It just waits, exactly the way 50 Cent always has. Watching, learning, taking notes, never wasting a moment, never moving without a reason, never acting without understanding the timing. That's what makes all the difference, especially now. Pay attention, always. No exceptions, period. If you want to stay ahead of stories like this and understand what's really happening beneath the headlines, make sure you subscribe and stay connected.